which has become a hit. I was just looking through Mediabase to see how it's doing on the charts. Of course, Valentine's Day has passed, but look at it. I mean, there it is on Mediabase on the AC chart.
They're keeping it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm so happy.
it's hanging around. So, okay, what is what was your first reaction to seeing that you now have Joseph James has a song on the charts going I haven't looked in Billboard to see if it's there, but there is your name associated with a song going up the national chart. What's your first reaction when you see that breaking through like that?
Oh, I mean, it's it's really awesome. I mean, you always you always think about it, and you imagine how you're going to feel when something good happens to your music career and things like that. But then it leads to things like this and having these great interviews, and then and then you get calls from people that are in the business, like my old boss at Sony Music and Lady Gaga this morning saying, "Hey, I think I'm going to do a shout out for you. Is that okay?" And I'm like, "What, are you kidding me?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "How many kidneys do you need?" Um, so yeah, to answer your question, I guess in a long way, it feels great, man. I mean, I've been doing it for a while, but I've always done it for a lot of other people. And I guess, COVID had a way of just resetting my clock. And I'm such a program person that when something works, I just develop it and keep working it. But COVID stopped everything and sent me back to being a writer and a session player. And then here I am, Joseph James sort of just became hatched. So
When did you first ever think of doing your own album? When in your life did you first have a dream of going into a
from the
studio and
the
for
day
yourself?
I was born, I'm saying, like, like yourself, like, like when you're in radio, you probably thought about it. I thought about always being the artist from the day I was born, but then you learn what it feels like to start paying rent and paying off, college and going out on dates, and you're like, well, I need to start making a little bit of money. And then all of a sudden, your talents and your abilities take you to, not unfortunately, but take you in a diverse bunch of directions. So then, you become a session player, a club date band. Then the artist thing becomes, yeah, I still want it, but then you you grow up. So,
Right.
um, but I've always worked hard at doing what I do, and I think a lot of other people recognize that in me, so they would hire me to manage their music and write their songs, and so I've always wanted it, but then you get sidetracked, and then now we're here, and this is it, man. I mean, it's, and I've taken a few lumps for it, but since COVID started, I stopped working with anybody else, not because I don't wish them well and I want to help people, but I'm having a great time doing it for myself. And like you just said, how does it feel? Man, it feels awesome. I mean, it's a really good drug, and I feel especially honored and privileged that I'm able to start joining that team. I don't know. It just feels like the greatest first day over and over again.
I mean, you have a hit. That's the thing. You
I
have
know
your
it's
own
kind of
hit.
weird, I mean, and it's like I pinch myself because, nothing's really changed. I mean, guys like you and me can say, wow, it's on Media Base, it's Billboard, you're in Times Square, you're doing this. And then you sit back and say, great. Like someone's like, oh, don't let it get to your head. I'm like, oh, those days are over. I said, somebody asked me in Pittsburgh, so like, what is it like after a big show? And what are you doing? Like, do you guys party and you get crazy? I'm like, oh yeah. I said, I break out the smart pop. I get in front of Netflix and I watch Downton Abbey. I said, now that's partying. you know, I'm like, no, man, those days are over. We ain't playing with green M&Ms and we're not throwing TVs out of windows anymore. We did that, when I was with Blackmore and stuff like that, and I was touring with Ritchie and everything. Let me tell you something. I was glad to have done it back in my 20s and my 30s, because that was the time to get it out of your system and let him pay for the damages. But no, those days are over, man. I just need a good meal and a comfortable bed, and I'm happy.
Okay, well, and going back a ways with your songwriting, what is the old of this upcoming album, 5.5? What is the oldest song on it?
Well, they're predominantly all brand new, and most of them, well, every one of them was finished during COVID over the last year or two. But there is a track called "That's Her Way," and that's a great question, by the way, Luke. "That's Her Way" was written for Kenny Rogers, and when I was working in Nashville, I got my first hold with Kenny Rogers,
Huh.
and I couldn't believe it. Like, I mean, I've worked with Vince Gill and Al Martino and Bocelli and Bono, and it's always been as like more of a player or a studio rat. But having done about 11 years of work in Nashville and working for a record label, I finally get a hold, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, and he's gonna cut my song." And then he passed away.
Oh.
So I
Hmm.
believe he cut it, but it never was finished. And I said, okay, well, that is part of life. And he and I had met at Mohegan Sun and after the fact, and I was like, I said, Kenny, I'm so happy. Thank you. Thank you. He's like, no, man. He goes, it's an incredible song. So when he passed, I had to get my rights back from his manager and the publishing company, which was no problem. And they said, listen, go put it out. It's a hit song. So I said, okay. So it's the country pop song that's going to be on the record. And I'm really happy about it because I did it a great justice. And I really feel like I was inspired by all that to do it.
That I would have to imagine the label would probably want this to be a single at some point
They
going
do.
down
Oh,
the.
no, no. You're totally right, actually. But if Valentine wasn't the first single, this would have been it.
Okay.
But everybody sat back and said, you're in perfect line with Valentine's Day when this happened. And we should put this out because we're going to roll the dice that not many people are doing a Valentine's single and it's a love song. And you might be buying yourself like the perfect storm of promotion. And to which what started this conversation with us, you were spot on. That's the timing was perfect with Valentine's Day. It became a hit. I think as well as being a good song because of the timing of it, the aspects of it. I don't think any other there. I haven't seen any, but no other major Valentine singles were released for the first time this year.
Yeah. I don't recall
So
any either. So yeah, I think you nailed it this time by chance, but
we
it
got
worked out.
lucky.
It did.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That people get to hear it. With all of the people that you have either come across, cross paths with, all the way to working on full on projects with them, et cetera, et cetera. There's always some sort of influence that they have on your life in some way, shape, or form. And maybe it's very subtle, maybe it's a big influence. What musical influences have, if any, have come through in this project, in your writing, in your production, from those other artists, those influences throughout your life? How can you
Oh
describe
yeah.
that?
Well, and a great question. And it's funny. I always laugh when people say, "Oh, I'm not influenced by anybody. This is completely original." Well, I'm not going to curse, but that's BS. Um, Listen,
Yeah.
I grew up with Billy Elton, um, you know, classic rock. Obviously, I played with Ritchie, Blackmore, and the Monkees, and I mean, and then I love, Dua Lipa. I love Kendrick Lamar. I mean, I love Ed Sheeran. I love the guys that make all those records. So, um, I mean, Billie Eilish. When Billie came out with everything with her brother, I just fell in love with every aspect of what they were doing. So while that's not really my style, I think all the aforementioned have influenced me. So obviously, being a piano player, um, Billy and Elton, that's part of the diet. Then you learn Bruce Hornsby piano riffs. Then you go to Berkeley and you play like Chick Corea and everything like that. So in the new record, and I'm hoping that I'm I expect I would love to share some tracks with you in the next couple weeks, assuming we should be done by then. You're going to hear a lot of things. Everything culminates to what I believe is pop rock. And obviously, radio believes it because they took me on for this year. They're pseudo working everything with me with management. I mean, there's a 30-person team that is chomping at the bit. One end of it wants to put out the next 5 singles, and the other end of them is saying, well, hold on. Valentine is still climbing here and there. It didn't go anywhere. So why don't we milk this and then put the next single out the middle of April instead of the middle of March? And I said, guys, whatever it takes. I said, just point me where I have to go. So like today I'm in Birmingham doing drive time shows. Tomorrow we hit Atlanta again, get back to New York on Friday. And we're going to milk this. And then, but what you're going to hear in the record, just to circle back, you're going to hear all those artists in some way, shape, or form in my DNA come out in this record. I mean, I'm playing great piano solos like Jerry Lee Lewis, and I think I'm singing the best I've ever sung. And, you know, with everything that went into it, you're going to hear a taste of yesterday and tomorrow all mixed together.
What is your composing? Yeah. What's your composing style?
Oh, torture. It's it just got added to the funk and wagnalls. You know, I get into a rhythm and then it encapsulates me. I mean, so when COVID hit again, I hate to always use that as a reference, but I like to look at what positive if anything came out of COVID. Well, I kind of figured the world was going to just sail away and who knows what was going to happen. And I just said, screw it. Let me just go write. Let me just write for myself because I love writing. I love it and I hate it. Once it's done, I'm elated. But when I get into it, I stop sleeping normal hours. I stop waking up predictably at any given time of day or night. It just totally takes me to where if I don't finish the song, I'll never be happy. So I ended up writing like 30 plus songs during COVID. And the writing of it was just, it's OCD meets, I come up with a musical idea. And then all of a sudden I start marrying lyrics to it based on how I feel at that given moment. So music, lyrics, and a runaway train.
Yes. So the video you mentioned, upstate New York, who was in that video? Who are all
so those are guys I play with. The irony is that if you watch that video at different points, we were getting hit by our first big snowstorm. So like in different clips, you'll see different levels of snow on the balcony outside. Yeah. And so what happened was basically my guitar player, my bass player in the video. Obviously, I'm there. The other acoustic guitar player couldn't get up the mountain. And one of the assistant videographers had to fill in on drums because the drummer couldn't get out of his driveway. So, and when the song started getting tested at radio, what happened was that we needed to shoot that video within I was speaking to the guys in LA, they said, man, we need a video probably within the next week and a half because you're starting to break the 200 chart. And, lyric videos are not what you do at this level. You got to give the audience something more they want to see. So we shot the video in like a 24-hour period during the biggest snowstorm in upstate New York this year. And here we are. Those are the guys. That's us. We put it all together and we spent the whole weekend together by default.
So except for the drummer, that's the bass player, the guitarist, they're the ones you're going to hear on the regular
on the whole album.
Right.
Oh yeah, actually. And then well, in addition to that, I do a lot of work with session players all around LA and Nashville. So there'll be guitar parts from what's his name? What's the guy's name? Adam Schoenfeld, who's Tim McGraw's guitar player, Big and Rich. My bass player is, he's played with everybody from, Billy to Gaga, this Russian guy named Ivan out of New York, who's just incredible. Acoustic guitar players, in addition to having like a ton of hits. Actually, here we go. My assistant here is giving me the rundown. Sam Hunter on bass. Adam Schoenfeld guitars, Carl Miner acoustic, Wayne Killius has played with everyone from Taylor Swift to you name it. And then the best, Greg Beek, who's Celine Dion's keyboard player. So I brought in all of my friends and people that I could get for this record because basically 5.5 represents my time. And it's a personal number. And it just basically means we're going big or going home, man. That's what we're doing. So, but I brought everybody in, but the guys in the video and the girl are currently, these are the guys that we do shows with. And like, for example, I just finished Pittsburgh and Gino Vanelli, who I haven't heard his name in a while, big Canadian rocker, just hired us to be the opening act.
I heard
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm sitting back going, huh, how did that happen? So, but maybe there's some truth to all this. I don't know, man. We'll see.
Well, that
We'll
that
see.
was actually going to be my next question. What is your favorite Gino Vanelli song?
Well, there's two of them. I mean, I just want to stop loving I would just want to stop, I think is the title.
Mhm.
I would say that's the one that I knew. And unfortunately, I don't know many of the other hits, but I know that he's done uh a bunch. Well, I think he's had about four big hits, and I'm gonna educate myself in the meantime. But what I do like about Gino, um, hold on, give me a second. I'm reading this text from him right now. Okay, he's actually telling me, please check out a couple of my songs. Living Inside Myself and Wild Horses. I want you to accompany me when I go on and play those. So
Really?
yeah, so I'm like
Wow.
literally reading my computer as we speak, and just by coincidence that email popped up recently, but today. But anyway, so I will learn those others as well.
That's
But
actually
his agent was at my show, one of my shows in Pittsburgh, and CBS Radio was there, and I didn't know what to expect from this show, but I knew that people were going to be there because it sold out. And then all of a sudden, before we left, Gino's agent said, "Listen, I love what I'm seeing. I saw clips of your band. Can you send me a couple of the new singles, the mixes?" So I literally had them. I said, "Here you go." I said, "Go ahead and bootleg them, steal them. I don't care. The more people share, I love it." And this morning, yesterday, I woke up and there was a rider in my emails. So I guess we got it.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Funny that he mentions Living Inside Myself. That's my favorite of his. And
Okay.
I think what I really liked about it, especially coming from that era when there seemed to be a lot of chord changes in pop music, late 70s,
Yeah.
early 80s era music. And that's what I particularly loved about that. So I'm a little bit envious that you now get to learn to play that with him on stage. That's really awesome. That's cool that you get to do that.
I may have to call you for the chord changes if you don't mind.
I'm gonna have to figure
Okay.
some of that out too. Like I've got it in, like it's running through my head right now. And I got to figure out exactly. So is this a deal? Like is it A flat seven major seventh? Is that the ninth or
Yeah, I know
something like
there's a
that?
descending line. I was listening to some stuff when I was driving from Ohio the other day, and I just happened to pull up a couple things on YouTube. And one of the songs was that. Maybe it was that one, but there was a
Yeah.
descending line. I couldn't tell what key it was in, but anyway, well, I just may have to reach out to you. We'll see.
You're gonna do great, however it goes. You're gonna do absolutely fine with him.
Yeah.
So all of this done. Looking back on your other projects, pre your own, what project of someone else's are you most proud of? If you could say one stands out above the rest, what other artist projects that you've done in your career ranks at the top?
Well, my obviously, what a lot of people know me for is breaking the Gaga sessions, the red and blue, the word sessions. Um, and it wasn't so much, well, it was the project, but it was the person. So when I started working with Stephanie for those 6 months, um, I saw the fire that I had at her age, because I'm a little older than her, but and it totally reminded me of who I was. So I will say, and today, like even this morning when I spoke with her and her dad and everything, he's picking her up from a film set. I think she's doing possibly the Joker 2 or somebody, something like that. But she always has the fire. And, I remember as a kid, even my parents would say, "Oh, calm down, breathe, get away from the piano, go out and play in the backyard, go play baseball with your brothers." And I would, but the fire from Gaga was something that has always stuck with me. The same fire you recognize in Ritchie Blackmore. This is a guy who, like Eddie Van Halen, takes his guitar to the bathroom with him because you just never know, when you're gonna just and I do the same thing. It's funny, people joke. Nancy mentions to me all the time. She goes, "You have a keyboard in every room of the house," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's great, isn't it?" I said, "It's a lot better than a basketball hoop or like a hot tub." I said so. But I would say the fire that I get from those artists, from working with Bono, Andrea Bocelli, who we really, I don't speak very, I speak very broken Italian. Same thing. And then there's a bunch of other singer songwriters who I've been fortunate enough to work with. And I just, and they all have tastes of it. But what I tell them now, I say, listen, I said, if you really want to do this, is when I was taking people on.
Mhm.
If you really want to do this, I said, you have to be willing to give up everything in the process. I said, because, and I said, I'm not asking you to sacrifice. You have to want to do that. I said, which usually requires a few visits to a shrink. I said, because you got to figure out why you want that. I said, and then that shrink becomes your payroll partner. I said, but that's really it, and so I would say the people that I had mentioned all have that spark. And then obviously a lot of singer-songwriters that pass through have the spark, but many of them, even if they said they weren't truly willing to give it all up. And you have to be willing to walk around like that, because that's what it's going to take. I mean, today's my birthday and I'm going to see 3 radio stations. I'm going, I got, I'm blessed to be with you right now. And then I'm literally sitting in the parking lot of a drive time thing we're going to tape in about an hour. And I'm like, I don't want to move. The signal's great here. I said, order lunch. We're going to live in a car for an hour. So, you got to have that insane drive to want this. And I don't know what that's predicated upon, but I'm glad I have it.
Well, you're in a position to spend your birthday doing interviews to talk about your hit song, and there are a lot of people that wish they could be that lucky to do that. So happy birthday.
Thanks,
And
Lou.
this is awesome that you are getting this opportunity, and there's more to come, obviously. Joseph James, the album is 5.5. The song is Valentine. Go listen to it if anyone listening, watching this has not yet do so. Thank you so much for taking time in a car in Birmingham on your birthday to chat about this. All the best on the touring, the time with Gino Vanelli, et cetera, and all the best going down the road.
Great. And Luke, do me a favor, send everybody to josephjamesnyc.com for all real-time updates. And man, I hope to see you soon, and I can't wait to send you the next couple tracks as well.
Sounds good. We'll be listening for them. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, brother. Thank you, brother.